Good evening and welcome to Who's Your Daddy, the first ever parenting show hosted by a man. I'm Marlon Abrahams and it's great to have you with us. Well, tonight's the second episode in this groundbreaking new series, and we'll be here live every Saturday night at 9 o'clock, so do spread the word and don't miss it. Just a quick reminder not to miss my columns every week on parent24.com, samen.co.za, and every Saturday in the Saturday Star newspaper. Now I need you to post your comments on these columns because I'd like to discuss them on the show. So please go there and post your comments. Well, tonight we're talking breastfeeding. Last week we started with conception, and we looked at how boy meets girl, and when boy meets girl they decide to have a baby. This week we're looking at what happens after they've had the baby. And with me in the studio to discuss this very tricky issue. Now I say tricky because you might think it's so simple. You might think that nature's designed us to effortlessly engage in breastfeeding as the most natural thing in the world. However, it's not necessarily true. My guests tonight are renowned sexologist Professor Elna McIntosh, as well as breastfeeding expert Brenda Campbell. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Elna, let me start with you. In my sort of understanding of the breast, just as a human being, women have breasts and they are mothers. I'm assuming it was there to feed the baby. Why do men find them attractive? What is the issue around breasts? Why are we turned on by breasts?
Well, I think that is sort of what makes the difference between boy and girl.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you think back when you were little, at first you sort of not quite sure. You might see your mother's underwear. But as you get older, you know what, I often think maybe the first sort of sexual encounter is sort of just maybe wanting to touch a breast.
Okay, now let me throw this at you. I can buy that. That kind of makes sense to me. But why in other cultures, like black culture in South Africa, for example, black man can walk past a naked woman, a topless woman rather, and not bat an eyelid? Is that just a cultural thing, do you think?
Well, again, it's how we were brought up. Because we are, little girls can run around and play, but the minute they want to run around in the nude, we're like, no.
Yeah.
Put your clothes on. Whereas little boys, I don't know why we speak of privates, because they have publics.
Yeah.
Hey, it's out there.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Come see Marlon is in the garden, he's weeing. Isn't it lovely? Call all the neighbors.
Yeah.
So girls are very, and I mean, I'm just talking sort of in a Western culture, very quickly told to cover up.
Yeah.
But culturally, in a lot of cultures, you just walk around, it's natural. Girls play, boys play. If you think of the reed dance, it's sort of not even seen as a sexual thing. It's just showing who you are.
Okay. Well, let's talk about size. Now, I know being a guy and, I hang out with my mates and we'll talk about breasts and the attraction and that kind of thing. Size always seems to be an issue. Is there some sort of psychological issue around size? Are we sort of programmed to go for women with bigger breasts? And what is the issue around that?
Usually when men talk, the hands go. It's one of the things where they gesture. Hey? Have you noticed? Yeah. Again, and there's a guy called John Money, he speaks of a love map, and it's sort of what we are schooled, what is in our head. Because you might be very attracted to your grade 1 teacher because she would bend over when you're doing your work, and there you're looking at a cleavage. Or, because if you think back, there was Marilyn Monroe, and then we went to Twiggy, and now we've got Scarlett Johansson again. So, because we are so led by Hollywood, so things also can go from completely flat chest. And for a lot of men, and so we speak of boob men and leg men. And I think that to me is often interesting, because if you're really a boob man, if we're now going to pass on these breasts to somebody else, there will probably be a bit of I want to call it a sibling rivalry. When am I having my breasts back? But for a lot of men, and I think it's that remembering that precious lying on my mom's breast and she's rubbing my head. So I think a fondest memory for most men is sort of somebody's playing with your hair and you're lying on somebody's chest.
And I suppose, Brenda, that's why breastfeeding is so important, to establish that bond right from the beginning.
Very important, yes.
There's an expression that we tease all the time. We say men who weren't breastfed make lousy lovers. So I think that's basically what you're saying. But Elna, let me just go back a bit. Excuse me. In your practice, I mean, you're a sexologist. You help guys who have issues with sex and that kind of thing. Have you come across patients or clients who have issues with the breast as a sexual object while their partners are breastfeeding? Has that ever been an issue with you?
You know, and I actually see it from both sides. I've had a mother that was describing to me she experiences orgasms while breastfeeding this child. Now, if you really just think of it, close your mouth. But what happens is...
Who needs a man?
No. And this mother was deeply concerned.
Yeah.
Because she came to me and she said, does this mean I'm molesting my child? Is this going to leave bad? And you know, this poor child, you can say, he's going to be in therapy. But all that really happens is because we know with the prolactin levels, if a mother's just breastfed, she feels good. She feels really good. And I think the other thing, I speak of skin bonding. You know, that mother is skin bonding with that child. Because touch, our skin, is our biggest sex organ.
Yeah.
And when you've just given birth, and there's just all this loving, I always think of a baby, the hour just before he's born or she's born, it's terrible. They're stuck. They're like, oh, what's going on? Oh, this must be my mother. Yeah. She's soft. And their first year really is they're learning through their skins. If I'm wet, I scream. Something warm in my mouth.
That's the woman's experience of it. I want to
so
talk
the
about the
man's
guy.
experience.
I mean, guys, they get jealous of this thing. Okay, mom comes home with baby. 9 months ago, he was happily fondling and playing around with the boobs. Now there's a little baby that's his own flesh and blood that he's suddenly jealous of. How do guys deal with that? I mean, have you had that kind of experience?
So for a lot of men, suddenly he's looking at this completely, this is we haven't seen this before.
Yeah, exactly.
Suddenly she's lactating. Breast milk has a very unique smell to it. So there's a lot of new things happening, you know. Before, when we had pillow talk, now we've got to put pads in, different things. So for a lot of men, it is an extreme turn off. However, you get the other man, it is for him the most beautiful picture, Madonna with child. He's looking at that and it's just, so a lot of men are really turned on by this. And the wife's going, can you just wait? Can you take a ticket, number 367? I'll get to you. You know, so it's that talking, the communication. Yeah. I mean, we always go about talk. Yeah. But sometimes we've got to really, the man has to say, this is so hot, baby, you know. Maybe not in quite those words, but we need to communicate.
Is it sort of, I don't know, Brenda, maybe you can come in here. Is it considered weird for guys to get involved in that area while mom's lactating? Is that sort of a no-no?
No, not at all. Just as you've been saying, the father, every now and then we found one father who doesn't want their wives to continue breastfeeding.
Okay.
In other words, breastfeeding needs to be good for the mom and baby and the father.
Yeah.
And once in a blue moon you find that. But I must say, the new dads are completely different. They are involved from the word go, and they really and truly support the breastfeeding a lot of the time. And sometimes you've got to say to your mothers down the line, you know what, you've got to take a break now. Dad needs a date and Dad needs some of your time.
Excellent.
So I think we don't see it as much as we used to see it, and that most men are becoming supportive as, with the breastfeeding. Okay. In fact, they really need to know the difference between formula and breast milk.
Yeah.
And if they don't get sound education in that regard before they have the baby, then we see problems.
Okay,
but if they really do understand what's best, they do support it.
We're going to get into that in more detail after the break. We're going to talk about breastfeeding versus formula and what's best. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Who's Your Daddy? So good to have you with us. Tonight we're discussing breasts and breastfeeding. What's better, what's not, everything to do with breasts and breastfeeding. But before we get on with the show, I just want to remind you, you can contact me on my email address, follow me at Twitter. All the details will be on the screen after the show, so please take it down and drop me a line. We'll also be taking your calls later, so look out for the number and give us a call. I'd really like to hear your opinion about what we're chatting about. Before we go to my guests, I just want to read an email I got from Liam, and then maybe we can take it from there, Brenda, because this, I think, pertains to what we're talking about. Liam Porter from Durban says, the funny thing is I've got 3 kids and I've only had the breastfeeding experience once. Women of today are selfish. They don't understand the importance of the bond it creates. They also have no idea how much of a turn on it is to us guys. Yes, we do get jealous to see someone else sucking on the nipples and the breast. Women of the 21st century can learn a lot from the old days. Brenda, let's take it from there. Let's start. Breast milk or formula, which is best?
Absolutely breast milk. And it's been proven in every single way now. The thing is, all mammals have their own species. Every single species of mammal has its own milk.
Yeah.
And, you know, for so many years, people made parents believe it was an equal choice. It is not an equal choice at all. We know that now, and we know that breast milk, you know, and parents need the kind of education that someone says to them, do you think a calf and a newborn baby look in any way the same to you?
That makes so much sense.
And once they sort of laugh nervously about that and you go into it, they start understanding a lot better. But not all parents get access to that education antenatally, which is so important.
Okay, so obviously breast milk's the way to go. Let's talk about the bonding issue, what Liam refers to in his email. How important is that insofar as you know, establishing that kind of security and safety, feeling of safety for the baby, that bonding experience?
Very, very important. Very important. In fact, there are many problems taking place worldwide that are likely to have been aggravated by a mother and a baby not making a good bonding relationship together.
Yeah. Like what, for example?
Well, you know, if a child is not nurtured at the breast, not loved, always sort of cared for at a distance, they don't form that very, very special bond with their mum and their family that they should. And that can go on later on to transmit into things like crime or you know, those kind of things. They are doing research and have done some research on those things.
Okay, so it's
But it's important for both of them. It's very important for the mum and it's very important for the baby.
Okay, let me come in on this angle. We've got two more guests in the studio. Stain, welcome, as well as Nicole and little Jaden. Now, I said early on in the show when we started, you'd think that breastfeeding would be the most natural thing in the world, but it's not that easy. There are all kinds of issues like latching issues. You know, you don't just whip out the boob and stick baby on and it happens. There are some issues involved in that. Nicole, what was your experience like?
It was difficult.
Yeah.
He was a prem baby, which meant that he didn't want to latch and suckle. So I was actually losing my milk and I was devastated. I was horribly devastated because I know, not just from a bonding point of view, but it's the best for them, for their brain development, for their development. And, you know, you want to give them the best you can. So I was devastated. Honestly,
did you eventually latch and start suckling, or how did you overcome it?
It took a while. We had to have him on formula, which I was also like horrified about. And then after me expressing, getting my milk supply up, we had him on the boob, getting him used to, first on the bottle to get him to suckle, get him used to suckling, and then eventually onto me. And he's been on me straight for, 2 months and 2 weeks now.
Well, he looks fantastically healthy, so it's
Without
obviously
even
working,
And getting the help, you know, she sought help early, which really helped her. I think
And
if she
staying.
hadn't, then she had this really unbelievable husband
He's
who supported
been
her every
unbelievable.
step of
I
the
don't
way.
think if he didn't help me, there was no way. I didn't have enough time to feed him with formula and express and then get him into bed and then wake up again to do it all. There was just no time, you know. On my own it took 2 hours. With him it took 40 minutes.
Stan, you heard Brenda talk about the modern dad, that apparently guys today are getting involved, they, you know, getting their hands dirty, cleaning nappies, doing whatever it takes. Do you consider yourself one of those dads?
Yeah, definitely. I've never believed, you know, a woman's places in the home or anything like that. In our household, everything's 50-50, you know. At the moment, obviously, it's just breastfeeding, you know, so obviously that part I can't help with. But everything else, we try to share it as far as possible, you know, and as much as we can.
We even play tag with him. That's my turn. No, it's my turn.
Let's just go back to the segment before when Professor McIntosh was talking about, you know, the whole issues that some of the guys have when they, their partners are breastfeeding. Did you experience anything like that? Any jealousy? Nothing?
Not at all. I see it for what it is. You know, I understand the context.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. You know, but and at the end of the day, you know, there's absolutely no feelings of jealousy or anything strange that comes from that.
And you're quite happy to wait until she's ready for you to go back there?
Yes.
It's worth the
There's some
wait.
sacrifices we all have to make.
He also knows he's going to have this wonderful, healthy baby and top of the class at school, good brain, good eyesight, good everything. And that makes a lot of difference to them too,
Brenda,
to know.
Yeah, let's just go into that in more detail, the quality of the breast milk. First of all, I've had some emails from guys asking me, some guys think that the size of breast has an impact on the quality of the milk. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that's absolute crap, right?
Yeah.
Now, how important is what the woman eats in terms of the quality of the milk? For example, does alcohol and drugs find its way through to the baby?
Absolutely, and so we discourage that completely, and we in all our consultations with the patients, and that we stress the good diet and what they need to be having, and also the rest, because rest goes hand in hand with that. Very, very important. The mums, we've seen a huge percentage of Caesar mums, at the moment, and it is more difficult for the mums that have had Caesars to get into the whole thing, but we encourage them to start on a good diet as quickly as possible and to stick to it.
And what is your advice to women who have these sort of vanity issues or cosmetic issues? They don't want to lose their firm boobs, and they want to get the baby off as soon as possible so they can maintain it. I mean,
fortunately, that's got nothing to do with breastfeeding. Okay, nothing at all. First of all, it's genetically determined. If you watch the Zulu maidens dancing, you'll see some little breasts, some pointing upwards, some hanging down, whatever. So it's genetically determined, but it's the pregnancy and the pregnancy hormones and ongoing age that changes the breast height. It is not the breastfeeding.
So if you start off with a firm, like a C cup or whatever, and it's firm and nice, and you get pregnant, obviously it gets bigger. What you're saying is afterwards it'll go back to that.
Yes.
So using the excuse to stop breastfeeding and to go onto a bottle to maintain your perky boobs is not an argument.
No reason whatsoever. They've missed the boat already. You can virtually say to them, well, sorry, you're pregnant, and the pregnancy hormones are going to, change it a little bit.
You were saying off air that apparently statistically we've got the lowest breastfeeding rate or something in the world.
Yes, just very lately South Africa's only just found out that they've got the lowest exclusive breastfeeding rate worldwide, and that we're also only one of 12 countries that can't get the infant mortality rate down, and it's very, very largely because we've gone so way away from breastfeeding towards formula, and of course the HIV thing upset the apple cart there as well. Now we know that women with HIV can safely breastfeed if they're using their drugs.
Sorry to interrupt, we've got to go to an ad break, so now you've heard it. Breastfeeding is the way to go. It's got all kinds of social and health issues. Please keep your babies on the boob. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Who's Your Daddy? Thanks for being here, guys. Guys, now I need you guys to call in, ask questions. You can't just leave me alone, you're asking all the questions. Before we get there, the number will be flashed on the screen, so please call. Also, don't forget, if you can't call, my email will be on the screen after the show. Please send me an email. And also, if you need to get in touch with any of my guests, especially if you need breastfeeding advice, Brenda's available. She wants to get in touch with you guys. Drop me an email. I'll pass on their details to you. Before we go on, I just want to read another email I received from the Gender Media Diversity Center manager, nogal, Miss Sayana Chingamuka. And she says, congratulations on the launch of your show. I missed the first episode and hope to follow the remaining 12 episodes closely, as well as your Saturday Star column. As gender links, I'm sure we will have something to say about the program from a woman's point of view. We have circulated an in-house email to encourage our staff to look out for your column, as well as to watch your talk show. Now, I really encourage women to watch my show, and especially watch it with your men. We're looking at parenting from the perspective of the guy, from the male's perspective. Brenda was saying earlier that guys are getting more involved. Stein was saying how he got involved with his partner, and it's important. So we want you guys to watch and share your experiences with us. Now, guys, we've obviously established that breastfeeding is the way to go. From the guy's perspective, Brenda, in your opinion, what do we need to know about what the woman's going through during that period so we can be more supportive and more understanding?
Okay, the support is very, very important. As we said, just helping her get the right meals, helping her get enough rest. A lot of the dads want so badly to give the baby some milk in the middle of the night to help the mom. And unfortunately, in the first 6 to 8 weeks, it's a no-no, because the mom will then express some milk. She will want to have that long sleep and may need that long sleep, but often it causes things like blocked ducts and mastitis and that when you get stasis in the breast. And until that supply is really, really well established around 6 to 8 weeks, it's not advisable. So I say, do they want the short or the long answer? If the dads say, I say, if you were meant to breastfeed, you would have had the breasts too, but you're not. You're meant to support the breast.
Interesting that you mentioned that. I did some research online, for the show. Excuse me. And apparently, we are capable of breastfeeding. Dr. Jeffkoff last week was confirmed that. But we need a little bit more estrogen and a little bit more fatty tissue. And the scary part about it, just sort of still on the subject, but on another note, is that men can actually get breast cancer as well.
Yeah.
A little bit scary. So basically what you're saying is guys need to help in terms of, helping with the food, preparing food for making sure she gets enough rest, that kind of thing.
And they can bath the baby, they can change the nappies, they can help with the winding, they can do anything else. But in our scenario, it's the mother that's meant to do the breastfeeding, and it's really best to leave it not to interfere in the first 6 to 8 weeks.
There's nothing sexier than a helpful dad.
Yeah.
I think we've got a funny path that leads to the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay, talk about that, please.
No, I just think that when you look at, I was looking at Stein was sitting and helpful, and we know he's bathed the baby before he came here. If you had to do all that stuff while he's watching and the TV, at some stage I'm going to be very resentful. And the first thing that's going to happen is my legs are going to go just like that. But when you're looking at, look at my man, and he's helping, and it's our child, that is a very sexy dad.
Okay, cool. Guys, there you have it. If you want to be sexy to your partner, bath the baby. Don't try to breastfeed the baby. That's not going to work. Elna, there's I don't know what to call it, a condition or a predilection or whatever. Some guys enjoy lactating breast, in other words, sucking on it. Is that considered weird or outside of the norm, or is it just another sexual, freaky kind of thing that goes on out there?
It's called lactophilia. So our lactation expert, so that's comes from lactophiliacs. So it is seen as a paraphilia. That's why it's called a lactophilia. And these would probably just be men that probably weren't breastfed and is now really turned on by breast milk. I think that it would probably be very weird for whoever to suddenly say, look, move the baby over. But we do know with fetishes and paraphilias, it's something that comes from your childhood, something rang somewhere.
But Elna, is it considered a dysfunction, or I mean, how do we
when
view
it
that?
becomes a dysfunction when people are uncomfortable with all these things, because sometimes some people are very comfortable with a lot of things. If you just look at the range of what we see as normal and what's abnormal. Personally,
it could in fact be helpful. If they didn't have that.
There's too much milk.
Yes.
And it's just, can you just
or if the mom had a
out,
blocked duct or something like that and didn't have a breast pump, it could be helpful. But is it acceptable? And probably in our races, in the bigger scheme of things,
Oh my goodness.
it wouldn't be. But it could be.
Yeah, but it's very well defined. It's in the literature. We know it's there. Kinsey already wrote about it in 1948. So it's, it's like with anything. Okay. People think up things. They are turned on by different things.
But Elna, the bottom line, what I'm hearing from you is that if it's consensual, it's okay.
Absolutely. Between two adults, and we can talk about this. But maybe, if mom's just had a new baby and, it's, I don't know, she's got to deal with so much stuff, and now it's like, and he wants breast milk as well? Who do I discuss this with? So often, that is part of the work that I do.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you there. We're having some technical difficulties with our call-in line. I know there were 1 or 2 callers. Sorry we couldn't take your calls. Time's just flown by, but I just want to end with one word from Elna. Guys that are having problems with this, what advice would you give them in terms of not being able to help or not being able to accept what's happening?
Talk.
Communication.
Always communication, your biggest thing. Listen and talk.
Yeah.
And seek help if this is becoming too much. If it means phone your mother-in-law, people get to help.
Okay, well, there you have it, guys. Communication is the key to success. I hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. We discussed sexuality of the breast and breastfeeding. And remember, breast milk is best. Do tune in next week, same time, right here on Mindset Channel 319. Thanks for joining us.